At last, the Belgian GP is here. This one is a Grand Prix of skill, a Grand Prix of immense intensity, a Grand Prix of racing where you can actually take part and go wheel to wheel on the circuit. But also, ladies and gentlemen, a Grand Prix of reluctance. Because don't forget that had it not been for some really last minute string pulling, this race would have been off the Formula One calendar. This time next week, I'm sure we're all going to be writing in so many letters to Formula One saying, Formula One, please don't drop it because this circuit always delivers, whether you're a driver, whether you're a fan, whether you're just a broadcaster as well, because everyone loves the Belgian GP. And that's what we're going to be talking about. But there's a cloud of uncertainty around the circuit, Kunal, because according to the eyes of so many experts, drivers, media people, or even commentators, Belgium is no longer safe. What?
Yeah, I mean, when you said the race of reluctance, I
Hmm.
also thought you were going down that way, that the whole Eau Rouge Radillon section
Hmm.
is where, unfortunately, we lost a very young driver a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And then 4 years ago was when we lost another driver, Antoine Hubert. And what has happened in terms of changing or making the circuit safer? Pretty much nothing, which is why I think
Hmm.
Lance Stroll and Pierre Gasly, two drivers that have been outspoken about, hey, should the race actually go ahead? Is it safe enough or not? We'll talk about whether it's safe or not. But yes, on one hand, there is Formula One. Of all the races they can replace, they always find Spa, which is like, is somebody paying me more money? Spa, you're off the calendar. Okay, and that's what happens. So that's one hand is Formula One wanting to replace Spa, and the other hand it's all this whole safety talk. But we're going to banter a lot through the next 20-25 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And banter is going to be the talking point, Sundaram, because for some reason it seems like Formula One just does not want any circuit that can offer us good racing. Who in their right minds would even think of dropping Spa? I mean, I know once the weekend is done, that feeling will be aggravated a little bit. But even heading in, it just makes me wonder and scratch my head thinking, this circuit, like, would you want to drop this beauty, this masterpiece?
That's what surprises me as well because Spa has always remained one of the most iconic circuits in Formula One. It's been there since the very first championship season. So, in that sense, it's a great track, a great locality, and I'm sure everyone loves the track as well. But surely, for a lot of safety reasons or even financial reasons, Spa is the number one circuit when it comes to chopping and changing. There's also been a few ideas floated of Spa being a track that just comes and goes every alternate year. But I would be very disappointed if Spa goes away. But most definitely, we need to get past the whole safety concerns and ensure that it's safe for all the drivers to drive. But I would be very gutted if Spa is dropped.
Let's get to safety in a minute. We firstly need to introduce the podcast, and we also need to talk a little bit more about who will be most disappointed if Spa is dropped. Because, Kunal, Max Verstappen last year won at this circuit from P14. He's only getting better. The dominance is only getting exacerbated. Ferrari are struggling even more. Mercedes are haphazard and haywire. McLaren seemingly are scared of slow corners. That's what Lando Norris has said in the media of all the things. What's the gap going to be like this weekend? 33 seconds was in Hungary. Let's just take a bet. 55, 57, something thereabouts.
I mean, there are
Maybe
two.
a lap.
I would say it could be down to whether or not we have a safety car and when we have it and when the race is neutralized. Safety cars apparently very high in frequency around Spa. I think since 2014, apart from two races, all the races have had a safety car. So that's one. Second is if Max is actually being pushed, because that's what Helmut Marko said just a couple of days ago, saying he finished 33 seconds ahead in Hungary. He could have been a lot more. He was just not pushing at all. But I'll tell you the gap that I am most interested in, and I say this every episode, it's the gap in Q1. You know,
Hmm.
how far will P1 or how far ahead will P1 be from P20? Because we've seen the gap be less than a second, just about a second, and so on. So I am absolutely excited about what qualifying is going to be. Remember, there's two qualifying,
Yes.
there are two races. There are also, guys, there are two race screenings we are hosting in Mumbai this weekend.
Not bad. Yes, we are going to have two race screenings at one weekend at last. Firstly, one at the other social, where it'll be Kunal and myself. And then we finally are going to explore Malad social as well in the north of Mumbai. the place is incredible. It's like an amphitheater like setup. 100 people could easily come in there. And we normally do have a crowd of that sorts as well. So it'll be awesome to join all of you in there, watching the race together, discussing it. And the best part of it all, Sundaram, there's nothing quite like discussing a race like the Belgian Grand Prix with the community. Because I remember we've watched and we've been a part of so many race screenings for Belgium. The fact that we get so much good racing in turn one, so much good racing in lap one, and then eventually the fact that this circuit also has 4 5 different opportunities where you can legitimately pass every single time you have a race screening there, the crowd goes bonkers. And I think what really makes this screening more impactful is the fact that we won't have F1 for 3 more weeks after that.
Oh, exactly. This is one of my more favorite races from the season. Also, the fact that racing in general looks a lot more interesting in that sense. Whenever someone overtakes someone on the Camel Straight, it looks a lot more exciting, and probably that's why it erupts and it results in a lot of people erupting and in happiness and excitement. But yeah, it's great to be finally back at one of the screenings and speaking with so many people. I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm also expecting to see a very different race, I suppose, because weather's also going to play some sort of part through all 3 days. So I don't think so. It's going to be very straightforward.
Since it's an iconic circuit, I'm going to first say my favorite corner name, and then I'm going to ask you both what your favorite corner names are.
Okay.
So this gives you all like 10 seconds to think of it. My favorite corner, and this is after Eau Rouge and Radillon. We'll still have that whole thing that some podcast will throw up saying, is it really Eau Rouge? Is it Radillon? We've settled that debate long
Get
time
over
ago.
it.
Yeah. But my favorite corner is Pouhon.
Yes.
And as an Indian, it reminds me of poha, which is probably one of my favorite breakfast things. I know, daddy joke there. For all non-Indians listening, poha is very, very tasty. It's more like a breakfast, like a snack made of rice flakes. But Samal,
You could have described poha better. It's like homecoming. It's a sense of,
especially in the monsoons.
especially in the monsoon, you feel such a sense of warmth and familiarity when it goes through your body. Now, poha aside,
That's poha, left-handed, flat out.
but it is the best corner in the entire circuit because I know
you
Eau
mean,
Rouge and
you mean not in the entire calendar?
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
Because when we do 130R, which is pretty similar, left-handed, flat out, like, oh my god, that's the best corner. But anyway,
I think
Pouhon.
Degner, the first Degner, is the best corner in the entire
Yeah,
circuit.
yeah. Oh yeah, that takes it. Yeah.
But Pujon, the point being, it goes underneath the shadows quite a lot because there's not a corner that challenges a driver's neck as much as that one. I don't want to go into the technicalities because I think it's better off hearing a driver when sharing those experiences. But just the way the corner goes long, left-handed, looping in, and if you have a car that's that planted that the modern day Formula One cars are, you can just feel like the car is on rails, especially when you watch one of those camera footages from one of the Marshall posts, because if you're just standing still over there, the way the car zips past, and then the entire second sector, right, Sundaram, because we have the piff paff section as well. That is a proper showcase of what a modern Formula One car can actually do. And that for me is why Spa just cannot be dropped. You have Eau Rouge and Radillon, you have Pouhon, but you have a completely different sort of corner as well when you get to the bus stop and then you're checking out how the drivers can brake and turn in and move around so well. It's just a perfect challenge, this circuit. I just can't understand why some people don't like it. I think it's just one of those social stigma things that, hey, I want to look cool, so I'll say I don't like Spa. But B, why F1 wants to drop it in the first place?
I have a question. First of all, is there still a bus stop chicane, or is it called just the chicane?
Interesting point. Because the bus stop like area is actually gone, is it not? They replaced it in the mid 2000s.
Unfortunately, the one thing that I really loved was that the name of that corner. Now it is just the chicane, but they're the good old oldies, and it's hence the bus stop chicane even in my head. But you guys haven't answered my question.
What?
Sundaram, your favorite corner around the Spa-Francorchamps?
It is the last corner. That's why I mentioned chicane, because making one mistake around that corner probably means that you have that sort of a pace deficit to the person you're battling up until the end of the Camel Straight. So you have to be really perfect and online there. And I think the last corner is my favorite. After obviously Eau Rouge, Radillon, all of these, I would probably go towards chicane.
And it's incredible. You know what? They have this little camber on the chicane as well.
Yeah.
So whenever you're driving on the sim, or maybe if you're lucky enough to drive in real life, the car can bottom out badly there. And the Formula One drivers make it look so easy. That's the incredible part of there. So it's just a spectacle, quite like what we have in store as well for early in August. We have something planned, right? A spectacle of sorts.
We do. We are going to tease right now. We're not going to officially announce something, but
9th
9th
of
of
Mumbai,
August. Yeah,
yes.
9th of
9th of
Mumbai. There you
Mumbai,
go.
yes.
9th of August in Mumbai, we are going to have a driver who we will interact with, a very, very popular driver. It's the off season, so the driver availability is fairly high. You can take your pick. It's going to be in Mumbai. It's going to be at Dadar Social. For more information, check out for event information on our social media handles. But that's all that I'm going to give. 9th of August in Mumbai.
Is there going to be a car,
I'm trying. I'm really trying.
a race car,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
yeah. Yes, not an Uber car, but a race car. I'm trying.
No, let's see. But that is going to happen soon. But also, if you want to join in for any of our screenings this week as well at Malad and Dadar Social, please feel free to check out the link in the description of this episode. But let's move on to the meaty part, right? We had to talk about safety, guys, and this is the big issue. Now, on a very serious note, it is very, very sad and very unfortunate that we've lost two young drivers at one same corner in a very similar incident 4 years apart. Firstly, Antoine Hubert and then Dilano Vantoffen. It's sad and it's unfortunate, and I hope that their families are doing better. But to the point of the circuit, and for some reason, it has been garnering a lot of attention and a lot of, I wouldn't say hatred, but it's been going through a lot of microscopic detail. But I personally, Sundaram, can't for the life of me understand how can you make that track safer, A, and why should you? Because the problem in the recent event, unfortunately, seemed to be visibility. And Formula One is now testing out those spray guards or the spray flaps or whatever they're called. But isn't that the challenge of motor racing? Driving in the spray, driving in the rain. If it's too bad, don't race.
I wouldn't say. I mean, I wouldn't put it that way. Sure, it's a very dangerous sport, and obviously everyone understands the risks behind it. But then at the end of the day, it really is not the best sight to see when a driver is stuck in that sort of an accident, and it can turn a little fatal, or can turn fatal, and you obviously don't want that to happen, losing some of these talented drivers. Um, in terms of Spa, the sort of safety, there is, I think, multiple aspects to it. First of all, rain being a huge concern, obviously, as well, even in the previous instances, and that's obviously going to be a focal point this time as well. But also around the safety structures around that section. It's probably not Eau Rouge or Radion that's the problem. It's the barriers, the gravel, and the other
Yes.
areas around it, because drivers tend to go and hit the barriers and come back straight onto the track, and the crest of Radion is a blind spot, so drivers don't really know what's up ahead of them. So fixing it obviously is going to be pretty tricky, but it's been 4 years since the first major incident that we had. So ideally some sort of measure should have been taken so far.
But they're both very unfortunate incidents, aren't they, Kunal? I agree that the barrier can be worked on, but changing Eau Rouge, we've been here before. We've been here in 1994. We've added a chicane. It it's racing. It's meant to be tricky. It's meant to be challenging. Is it not?
Yeah, I'm going to break it down. There are, I think, three elements that we are trying to address. The FIA, by the way, I said they are studying. They're not going to make an official statement or a change, and things will go ahead as planned this weekend. But the three things that we are specifically talking of, and I'll probably address all three the way I see it. First is visibility, right? These cars are throwing up more spray, more water in the air than the previous several generations of cars, and hence visibility is a challenge. I think the race that happened at the Freka race, where we lost the young Dutchman, was really bad visibility, right? And I remember Mithila and we saw incidents, and she was like, Formula One wouldn't have raced in these conditions. Why did they let the young kids go race?
Yeah.
If the big drivers with super licenses, and you expect Formula One drivers they are at the peak of anybody's driving abilities, right? So the first question was, why did the race go ahead? And if Formula One visibility is lower, we don't race. So why was Freka racing? And sort of that's an isolated incident, right? But when it comes to Formula One visibility, they're trying the spray guards, and the FIA has done a few tests after Silverstone. They don't believe spray guards the teams don't believe the spray guards are ready to be added to the regulation. Several things. How will pit stops happen? Do they go in and off the cars? And can they be a permanent fixture? And so on. So slightly more technical. Then comes to the speeds at Eau Rouge and Radillon. I think are there faster corners? Definitely there are faster corners. I mean, I think what makes the whole challenge is faster corner plus altitude change plus, blind cornering, etc. that goes. And hence the barriers, cars are coming in at massive speeds and then sort of bouncing off or ricocheting off, as we call it. Should there be a challenge to the barrier solution? I think as keyboard warriors, mic warriors, as people who are actually not doing the driving, risking our lives. Yes, we love how Eau Rouge is taken, especially on boards and so on. So I would say yes, please go fix the barrier before we try and fix Eau Rouge. Yes, we've had a chicane in the early 90s at one point, but we would love for Eau Rouge to be the challenge that it has always been. Can we make it safer by fixing visibility and hence also by fixing barriers? That's where I'm going to leave it.
I think racing is just getting too fast generally, isn't it, Sundaram? Because in MotoGP recently, we're also seeing the same debate. And by the way, if you guys aren't following MotoGP, there's a very grim stat that I want to bring up. Honda has 4 riders. 3 of them currently are on their hospital beds injured because they're adding just too much downforce on the bikes. The bikes are too fast. The riders rather, are pushing in too quickly into the corners. They're making mistakes. They're crashing, and it's obviously more physical than Formula One. So you crash and you absorb the impact. And we've not had one MotoGP race with the entire grid on the field at the same time. Not one. Aero makes a difference. And again, we had, I don't remember who, but I think it was Bob Varsha who came on the Inside Line F1 podcast talking about how Formula One fundamentally, before evaluating changing the tracks, needs to evaluate changing the cars, because obviously we want to be the number one sport in the world, the fastest cars in the world, but the braking distances are too short. We're carrying too much speed into too many corners, and the added effect is just need to change your circuits, invest $100 million into building new tracks, and then adding safety protections like the halo, crash structures, making the cars heavier, making the cars wider. Whereas if we just make the cars slower, braking distances longer, that solves a lot of the problems. And we don't lose the love for motor racing because the cars then are generally more unstable, more on their edge, which is what we used to love from the past. No, Sundaram?
I mean, would
It's
they
a
do
little-
that? Would they kind of slow the cars down, because this is the pinnacle of technology as well. So obviously they would want teams to go all out in terms of innovation in that sense. But sure, there has to be an upgrade in terms of safety. I mean, after the last incident, the Lanao incident in specific, there's also been a lot of questions raised on the integrity of the whole chassis area at all, because he was T-boned, similar to what happened in 2019. So there's also concerns in that sense. But are we really going to go down that route that cars become slower?
What do you reckon, Kunal?
I've always been a fan of racing, and I think the faster Formula One cars have gone, the worse the racing has been.
Yes.
I mean, we always celebrate Ayrton Senna every Monaco Grand Prix. We remember that lap, where he was a second ahead of everybody else, blah blah blah. If you put that lap on board along with a 2023 car, I think the 23 car is 12 or 13 seconds quicker, which is almost 8/10 every corner. I mean, when you break it down, that's how you sort of try and build speed at a circuit. You break where you lose time, where you can gain time. Imagine we celebrate that era for, oh my goodness, what a lap, what a car, but they were so slow. I mean, 13 seconds slower is probably what Formula 2 is doing now around Monaco compared to Formula 1. Anyway, so I just get this feeling, yes, if it makes racing safer, if it makes the racing better, you can still be 2-3 seconds off the pace, still be the fastest series on the planet, and solve some of the other challenges. But you won't still solve the challenge of having just one FP session on a sprint weekend. Because can you believe it? We are 19 seconds into this episode. We've gone on a lovely tangent of safety.
19 seconds in Martian time.
19 minutes. My goodness.
It's okay.
My measure. But, we haven't, like we always do, like everybody always does, 6 times a year bring up, is the sprint format actually working? What is working, what's not? We've not done that, which means probably it's working. We are just looking forward to having qualifying tomorrow, qualifying on Saturday, a small race on Saturday, a big race on Sunday, We'll see where it goes. The battle for P2 will play out 4 times this weekend. Two
Yeah,
sessions each of racing qualifying.
yeah.
I'm pretty excited. I mean, who do you, Samuel, think will be the team in P2 this week?
I really, from the bottom of my heart, want Williams to be involved. Firstly, I
They scored a
don't.
point last year, so
They did, and they're only getting better. Longer straights, faster high speed corners. This could well be Alex Albon's dark horse race. I'm not saying he's getting a podium. No chance. I think he's going to be fun to watch for on Friday and Saturday, though. But
imagine yet another race with an Albon DRS train.
oh,
I
here
would
we
love
go.
that.
It would be fun.
I love it when midfield teams get in there or lower field teams get in there, mess up everybody else's strategy. Because hey, why should everybody have a straightforward race like
Yeah.
Max Verstappen?
Quite simply, and then the battles into Lecom will be incredible, and then maybe we could get to see some cars go side by side, heading out of La Source and heading into Eau Rouge. That would be fantastic. But no, realistically, in my head, uh, I I'm confused, and I'm confused for good reason because, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, McLaren are scared of the first sector. Mercedes are always a little bit volatile. Aston Martin, since the new tire construction has come in, have been in a bit of a tricky spot. And that long main straight, in terms of just looking at the past races and how things have gone, should not favor them. Again, may not. What happens on track is always different. And Ferrari are just, I don't know.
Ferrari.
For if anything, I think it's going to be Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc being caught behind Alex Albon in that train. But no, Sundaram, it's 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 so amazing that we finally are in the golden era of Formula One, where we have absolutely no clue who wins Formula 1.5 every single weekend. If anything, you and I could just put a random name out of 6 to 8 drivers, and it could be anyone for all we know, barring Lance Stroll and Carlos Sainz. But take care, that's understood.
Oh, absolutely. We literally cannot predict who's going to be second on the grid this time. I mean, also considering Perez has been having a poor run of qualifying, so we don't know who's going to be P2, and it's not necessarily going to be Sergio Perez. But it's interesting in that sense because we don't know who's going to be right after Red Bull on the starting grid. And like you mentioned, we don't know if Aston Martin is going to have a good weekend, but also the fact that Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll have scored so few points around Spa-Francorchamps. Alonso just has 71 points in 17 races at Spa, and Lance Stroll, who's also half Belgian. I mean, not half Belgian. He has Belgian heritage. He scored just 3 points in 6 races. So I don't know if Aston Martin is particularly pumped about this particular race, but it's going to be very, very intriguing.
I get a feeling it's going to be McLaren who
Okay.
will be P2. Mercedes have said we were the second fastest car in Hungary, but McLaren had track position. I have a feeling when it comes to P2, it is not going to be Checo Perez. It's probably going to be Lando Norris. That's my feeling. I think McLaren's mid-season jump is something commendable. They actually didn't bring their third upgrade at Hungary. They're going to bring it over the next few races. I'm assuming some things will come up in Spa as well. And we spoke about it the last episode. So I would say it's going to be not Checo Perez, even though he gets 2 qualifying sessions to get it right. Can he get 2 out of 2 right? That's what I'm going to look out for. But I would go for McLaren. And something very interesting after last weekend's race, with all the, hearing Lando Norris and Max Verstappen in the press conference is actually damn good fun. Okay, definitely something you should look out for. The two drivers were talking of my favorite corner, Pujon. Max literally said, Lando, you're going to fly in Spa. We're going to go stand at Pujon and watch you because you're going to be flat out. And Lando's like, haha, yeah, I'll be flat out one handed, blindfolded as well. And then Max goes and tells him, why don't you even take your rear wing off? And typical British humor, which I love. Lando Norris said, yeah, I don't need it anyway. It doesn't do much for a car anyway.
But to be honest, can you imagine that? How much fun it would be if we didn't have that much downforce heading into Pujon. Have you seen those old onboards, by the way?
Yeah.
They are fantastic. The drivers have to lift and fight because the car loses its rear end in the middle of the corner. But it'll be incredible, no? Because Verstappen Norris, we're finally, first time in history, Sundaram, getting to see that fight. Although faintly, just a little bit, but it's one that we've been wanting to see, I think, I remember this from what 2018, 2019 thereabouts, when they both used to race on the Sims back in the day, and then we've all dreamt up of those fights. And one day the two of you will be fighting in a competent car against each other. It could be coming, at least in qualifying this time out.
Are you referring to Lando Norris?
Yeah, and
Oh,
and the Oscar could also go to the podium this time. Finally, that
oh,
failed, no?
absolutely,
Little
absolutely.
bit.
Nah, that failed. That failed.
I think Piastri in specific, he was a little hard done in the last two races. He was definitely contending for that podium position, and let's see if he can probably fight for that third place or second place spot this time out as well. But it's nice to see two young guns, especially Lando Norris, finally fighting at the front. Although it's just been two races, I've always wondered. You had Leclerc at Ferrari, you had Verstappen at Red Bull, and you have young George Russell in Mercedes. When are we going to see Lando Norris come at the front and battle it out with these other rivals of his age and era? And we're finally getting to see that. And I hope McLaren's pace continues till the end of the season and they don't get robbed by how faster other cars get due to developments. But I'm really happy to see Lando and Max fighting it out in front.
And you know what? Oscar Piastri, even though he's been undone in the last two races, he's getting smarter. He's getting the mileage. He's learning. I think his undoing in Hungary was tire management, which is what happened. We saw Hamilton suddenly came out 9 seconds behind. He did well. He being Oscar did well, but the next round of pit stops, actually, Piastri didn't do as well. So he's getting smarter. He's going to be incredible. So I would love to see both the McLarens up there because that's what they're paying Daniel Ricciardo for to
Oh
make sure
yeah.
that both the McLarens are up there, not one in P2 and the other in P12.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot. $17 million. No, that's the compensation amount.
I think it's 20. I don't know why you reduced 3 unless he's paying that 3 to
VAT,
you.
VAT. It's going in VAT. No, but he earns $20 million and gets to drive for Alpha Tauri once again, and gets to compete with Yuki Tsunoda, and best of all, doesn't get to be under the pressure and the shackles of McLaren, which is incredible. And we saw last time out. I know it's not a tall order, pun intended, but he outqualified Yuki Tsunoda 3 thousandths of a second. It's
13,000
13 hundredths of a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I'd love for that battle. I mean, Yuki Tsunoda has actually said Spa is a high-speed roller coaster. I love the fact that we have 2 races and 2 qualifying sessions around Spa. If there's one circuit I want to do it 2 times at, it's Spa.
One sec. Are we also going to see a qualifying train then in Spa Sundaram? We always see that, right? People wait in just to get a good run of draft, and then it's all a scuffle and it's all messy, and Ferrari end up losing out at the end of all. It's that'll be horrible.
It get good. It could get a little messy. Also, since it's probably going to be raining on Saturday as well, also on Friday. So in that sense, it's going to get really messy. I don't know if someone's going to be impeding someone else, but the fact is, it's going to be very variable in that sense, and it's not going to be straightforward. Definitely.
So we finally have some semblance of what to look forward to this weekend. Safety is going to be a big talking point. It's definitely going to be Sergio Perez to watch for. 2 qualifyings are going to be fantastic. We also have 2 of us, Kunal, giving up picks for P2. We haven't gotten to yours yet.
I would say Lando Norris, McLaren. I'm cheering for them. But Ferrari, very crucially, I know none of us have picked. Carlos Sainz was on pole last year after
Come
grid
on.
penalties.
Yeah.
Sommel is like, oh my goodness, somebody talk of Carlos Sainz. I'm the only one, blowing his trumpet or whatever. But Ferrari, Lauro Mekis, finally has been released by Ferrari. He will not be at the Belgian Grand Prix weekend. There's a new sporting director at Ferrari, but I suspect it will still be the same old sporting madness at Ferrari.
Same old sporting madness. Do you know they celebrated the 1976 Formula One season by giving us a 1976 like pit stop last time out?
Yeah.
And Sundaram, have you heard of those reports that are coming out of Ferrari that they were all making up their strategy on the way in the race? And Leclerc was like, "Yeah, figure it out, dude. Tell me something." And this happened in Hungary. And Carlos Sainz is always chief strategy officer at Ferrari anyway. So I think that chaos is going to be fun to watch. It'll be good.
I don't know if it's going to be fun for the Ferrari fans, but it happens almost every single time. And the last time, Carlos Sainz was doing this once again in Hungary, defining what his strategy has to be, if it's too early, if it's too late. And I love that side of him as well. it's always difficult when you're driving to also have an eye on strategy and suggest these sort of things. But he seems to be doing that extremely well, and I hope they get their pit stops right this time at least, because sometimes it's really shambolic. It's really depressing to see Ferrari making these mistakes time and time again. When you see Red Bull pulling out 1.9 second pit stops, I hope they really pull things together this time.
Makes sense. I hope so as well. I hope I don't, because that'll add for more entertainment, and that's what we need this weekend as well. But no, it's great to know our predictions for P2 as well. And eventually, folks, if you are going to be in Mumbai this Sunday, I was about to say Warsaw Social because we had such an amazing turnout there last time. But Malad Social and Dadar Social is the place to be. Check out the link in the description for how you can join us. This has been the Inside Line F1 podcast. Subscribe to us for more of the same, and we'll be back on Monday with the post race review episode. Take care, everyone.